Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into, well, a really interesting space where gaming meets blockchain technology. It's an area that, for a lot of people, can feel pretty complex, maybe even a bit intimidating.
Oh, absolutely. You hear blockchain and you think wallets, fees, transactions.
Yeah.
It's definitely been a hurdle for players and for developers, frankly.
Right, developers used to simpler systems. But the material you shared, this report, it focuses on one specific network's way of handling gaming.
Hmm.
And it suggests something different, a future where the blockchain part just disappears.
Yeah, that's the core idea presented. Making the tech, as they put it, invisible. It's all about abstracting away those complexities we just mentioned, specifically for the gaming world.
So our mission here is to cut through that complexity, right? Pull out the key insights, the surprising bits from this material, and see how this tech is actually being used, how it's aiming to make gaming maybe more accessible, more innovative.
Exactly, and maybe even bring traditional Web 2 gamers and devs into Web 3 without them even, needing a big instruction manual.
Okay. We'll look at the main concept, see who's actually building on it, get some founder perspectives too.
Sounds good. It's about understanding their solution, then looking at the real-world examples they provide.
Perfect. Let's start there then. This invisible blockchain idea, what does that actually mean in practice, according to the source? How are they trying to make it happen?
Well, what really stands out in the report is the laser focus on the user, the
Mm.
player. The architecture they describe is built so that this blockchain layer is not something the gamer has to wrestle with.
Meaning no pop-up asking for wallet signatures or anything like that?
Pretty much. No dealing with traditional crypto wallets, manually signing transactions, definitely no paying gas fees every time you want to, say, equip an item or trade something in the game's economy.
So hang on, you could download a game, maybe from a regular store,
Mhm.
and be using blockchain assets, NFTs, whatever, and not even know it.
That's the picture the source paints. Players just focus on playing the game. It even mentions that some games already on the Epic Games Store, built on this network, well, people are playing them probably without any clue it's blockchain underneath.
Wow, okay. That would be a big step for getting more people involved, wouldn't it? Just removing that whole technical barrier.
Totally.
What about the developers, the people actually making these games?
For them, the source frames this invisible approach as a way for traditional Web 2 developers, the folks building most internet apps today, to build pretty complex Web 3 games or apps without needing a ton of prior blockchain experience.
Ah, so lowering the barrier for creators, too. Easier integration.
Yeah, exactly. Designed to plug into existing systems more easily.
Okay, makes sense. Remove friction on both sides, players and devs. That's how you get adoption. Now, speaking of adoption, getting buy-in, the report mentions some pretty interesting partnerships. One name really jumped out at me. Nolan Bushnell, Atari founder, right?
Yep, that's him. The partnership is with his newer platform, Moxy.
Moxy, what is that exactly?
It's described as a tournament and gamification platform.
Mhm.
And the report says they specifically picked this network because they needed speed and efficiency. Makes sense for competitive gaming, right?
Yeah, you can't have lag in tournaments. And the report made a pretty specific claim about cost savings for Moxy, something eye-popping.
It did. There's a quote from the Moxy team saying that just moving their token from Ethereum to this network, they expected to save them around $3.5 million a year
Whoa, hold on. $3.5 million annually.
annually, just on gas fees.
That's not just trimming costs, that's potentially changing their whole business model.
It's huge. And Bushnell himself is quoted too, calls the collaboration a game changer for Web3 gaming. He points to getting rid of gas fees, using the high speed, says it sets a new standard. Critical, he thinks, for bridging that gap we talked about.
Bridging the gap. Yeah, that phrase keeps coming up in the source material.
Mhm.
Between traditional Web 2 and this new Web 3 stuff. And connecting back to reaching regular players, I noticed the Epic Games Store logo seems to pop up next to quite a few of the projects listed in the report.
Yeah, that's definitely highlighted. The Epic Game Store is positioned as a major distribution channel, getting these games in front of a mainstream audience. Again, it reinforces that push towards wider adoption.
All right, let's get into the games themselves then. The ecosystem. The report gives a snapshot of a whole bunch of projects. Let's talk about the ones that are live now, based on the details in the source. First one here, World of Dipians. It's listed as an MMO.
Right. World of Dipians. Described as a big multiplayer online RPG. The focus seems to be on bringing businesses and new users into crypto through the game itself.
How? Like, what do you do in it?
You earn loot, rewards, standard RPG stuff, really.
Yeah.
quests, fighting monsters, alliances, PvP combat, but it's framed as a way to engage people with the underlying crypto economy.
And the source mentions it's getting traction already.
It does. It highlights it being ranked #1 on Dapradar at the time of the report.
Dapradar. That tracks usage on decentralized apps, right?
Exactly. So #1 is a big signal. It also mentions $6 million in funding and a $32 million valuation.
Okay, number one is definitely strong. How about Stray Shot? That's listed as a shooter.
Yeah. Stray Shot, first-person shooter. It uses blockchain for owning your items, true digital ownership, and a decentralized economy. Players earn rewards in different game modes.
Any unique details mentioned?
It notes a partnership with NBA players, like LaMelo Ball. And interestingly, a precursor game they did on Telegram, just a clicker game called Tap Shot, apparently got over 480,000 users in only 3 weeks.
Wait, nearly 500,000 users from a Telegram clicker game?
Yeah, kind of surprising, right? Shows how you can leverage existing platforms, maybe.
Definitely. And Stray Shot itself.
The report says it's on the Epic Game Store, aiming for a full release Q4 2024. Raised over $5.5 million.
Okay. Another shooter listed is Haven's Compass.
Haven's Compass. Tactical shooter, more narrative focused maybe. Again, players own and trade in-game stuff as NFTs. The source mentions its first open alpha on Epic saw over 20,000 downloads, 40,000 hours played.
Solid numbers for an alpha.
Yeah, and they apparently sold out their first NFT drops and have a mix of players, some crypto native, some traditional Web 2 gamers.
That mix, that really speaks to that bridging the gap idea in practice, doesn't it?
It seems to, based on their description.
Let's shift gears. Bit Hotel. Listed as a metaverse project. What's the deal there?
Bit Hotel.
Yeah.
It's a social online game, looks like, set in a virtual hotel, player mechanics, NFT ownership, of course. But the emphasis seems to be on social stuff, mini games, owning your room or items as NFTs.
And the metrics in the report, they seem pretty high, especially for something Web3 native.
They are quite striking. Over 1 million user sessions quarterly, it says. Consistent growth. 200,000 signups, 150,000 monthly active users.
Wow.
And here's a key bit. 70% of those users reportedly were new to crypto wallets.
70%. So they must be doing something right with that invisible onboarding.
Seems like it. The report explicitly mentions they put in user-friendly stuff, like native wallets and gasless contracts because of that audience. It's a practical example of the concept.
Yeah. And it's on mobile stores, too.
Approved on iOS and Android, yeah. Half the players are mobile. They've raised $3 million.
Okay. Those mobile approvals and the high number of crypto newbies, strong signs of reaching beyond the usual crowd based on the source. What about Crypto Blades? It's been around a while, hasn't it?
Crypto Blades, yeah. An NFT RPG. You get NFT heroes, weapons, earn tokens through fighting. Players own and trade the NFTs. The report mentions significant daily active user growth and, get this, 1.2 million NFT holders.
1.2 million people holding NFTs just within that one game.
That's the number in the source. It really underscores the potential scale of digital ownership engagement these projects can sometimes achieve.
Incredible. Let's touch on one more live one mentioned, Motodex, racing game.
Motodex, yeah. Competitive motorcycle racing. Combines NFT ownership, maybe you own the bike or even the track with skill-based racing. Entry fees, prize pools, that kind of thing. Race against others or AI.
And its traction, according to the source.
Ranks in the top 3 on Dapradar. Reports over 230,000 unique active wallets. Daily.
Daily. 230,000.
Daily active wallets, yeah. And 250K in funding mentioned.
That's substantial daily engagement. Top 3 on Dapradar. Okay, so these aren't just ideas on paper. The source clearly shows live projects with significant user bases using this tech.
That's definitely the impression. Real products, real users.
So moving beyond the live ones, the report also talks about projects still building, gives us a peek at what's coming next, right? The pipeline.
Exactly. Shows there's ongoing development, different genres being explored. We can look at a few examples from the material. Boudicca, action-adventure.
Boudicca, what's the concept?
Play to earn, set in 1st century Britain. Roman invasions. Sounds like strategy, resource management. Yeah. You manage and defend your land. Report mentions the founder has experience with listed companies.
History and strategy. Okay. What about Cyberkart AI? Another racing game, but sounds different?
Cyberkart AI, yeah. Pitched as AI-powered racing. Like Mario Kart meets Glade Runner is the vibe I get from the description.
Okay.
Dynamic maps generated by AI, special abilities, weapons, crypto rewards. And you own your carts or items as NFTs.
Mario Kart meets Blade Runner. That's certainly a unique combo. There's also Hangry Animals. Focused on a different angle.
Hangry Animals, listed as a platform project, described as gaming for good. The idea is to link gameplay with donations to animal charities.
Interesting. How does that work?
Players support charities, maybe their in-game avatars could even show up in related comics or animated series. NFTs are central, representing the characters.
Gaming for good. That's compelling. What kind of progress does the source mention while they're building?
Notes over 4,000 social followers, they launched a first comic issue, got a licensing agent for an animated series, raised about $500K pre-seed.
So a play-to-save model almost, alongside play-to-earn?
Kind of, yeah. Adds a different layer.
One more that caught my eye was What's TCG, categorized under RWA. What's RWA mean here?
RWA stands for Real World Asset. WITS, TCG. What is this sorcery trading card game? Is a TCG, collect cards, battle, NFT ownership of the digital cards.
Right, standard TCG stuff. So where does the real-world asset part come in?
The source says they plan to integrate physical trading cards that have NFC chips embedded in them.
NFC chips, like contactless payment.
Yeah, similar tech. The idea is the chip links the physical card you're holding to the blockchain, to the digital version you own.
Whoa. So you could tap your physical card to prove ownership or maybe interact with the game? That's really blurring the lines between physical and digital.
Exactly. A pretty novel use of the tech, bridging those worlds. The source confirms it's still in development, maybe another year of testing. Slated for Epic Game Store 2. Also raised $500 pre-seed.
Okay, fascinating stuff in the pipeline. Let's bring in the people behind these projects. The report quotes several founders. What are they saying about why they chose this specific network? For instance, Mihai Buseka from World of Dipians.
Right, Mihai Buseka. He's quoted saying it was basically a no-brainer for them. He specifically points to the scalability solutions, saying they fit perfectly with what they need for a huge online world like theirs. Wants that seamless, immersive experience.
Seamless and immersive.
Yeah.
There's that invisible theme again. How about Frank Bonnet, founder of Cryptopia?
Frank Bonnet. He calls the partnership a natural fit for Cryptopia's strategy, which involves multiple chains. He really emphasizes being able to offer a gasless experience to players, makes gameplay better, he says, while keeping things decentralized.
Gasless experience seems like a really big selling point, according to these founders. Psych from Deadfellas. They're doing a mobile TCG, Death Touch.
Yeah, Psych highlights that gas-free structure as crucial, especially for growing a free-to-play game. They see it as key to making Web3 gaming appeal to both competitive and casual TCG players. Just makes it easier to interact.
Makes sense. Free-to-play plus gas fees would be a tough sell.
Exactly.
And Jeff McCabe, Lightning Works. They do digital comics.
Right, Jeff McCabe. He's quoted being eager to use the network's tech for their digital comics platform. Highlights scalability again and zero gas fees. Calls it perfect for delivering a cost-effective and lightning-fast experience.
Interesting that it's enabling models beyond just traditional games like digital comics.
Yeah, it shows the potential breadth, maybe. The source seems to suggest that. Finally, Mikhail Debulidze from Arena Games.
What's his take?
He talks about their mission be removing barriers.
Yeah.
For developers and gamers. He thinks this network helps with that because of the high transaction speed and, again, zero gas fees. Calls the zero fees an additional bonus for users.
An additional bonus?
Yeah, and he's excited about things like launching new games or doing airdrop campaigns where it's easy for users to participate because it's gasless.
Ah, okay. So the zero gas isn't just saving money. It's actually enabling different kinds of marketing or engagement because there's no friction for the user to claim something or join in.
Precisely. It takes away a major pain point people often associate with using blockchain stuff.
Looking at that ecosystem graphic in the report, you don't even need to read every name. Just seeing the sheer number of logos, the variety, it paints a picture.
Yeah, the graphic does convey scale quite effectively. It reinforces the idea presented in the source that this isn't just, 2 or 3 projects tinkering. It's presented as a pretty broad and diverse ecosystem actively building or running on this network.
Okay, so let's try and wrap our heads around this. We've talked about the core concept, this invisible blockchain idea, looked at key partnerships like Moxy as validation, walked through a bunch of examples, live games still being built.
And I heard from the founders themselves about why they're using it, drawing directly from those testimonials in the source.
Right. And the benefits that keep coming up in the material are pretty clear. That seamless, maybe invisible experience for the user.
Getting rid of gas fees, which helps both players and developers massively.
The potential for real digital ownership, maybe earning through gameplay.
And for developers, easier integration, especially if they're coming from Web 2, plus those cost savings and new ways to design economies.
So for you, the player, the idea is you just play. You own your stuff, maybe you earn some stuff, but you don't need a PhD in crypto. And for the devs, it's cheaper, easier to get into Web3, maybe unlocks new game designs.
Yeah, that seems to be the core value proposition presented,
Mm.
which leads to a pretty big question, really, drawing from all this material. How could this shift, if it works as described, change the games you play? Or how you think about your in-game items? Or even how developers decide to build games from now on?
Yeah, I mean, if the blockchain part truly becomes invisible, does it just become another background technology like, the game engine or the database developers use, but one that just happens to make ownership and in-game trading super easy and maybe even standard?
The source definitely makes the case that that's the goal. Like that Nolan Bushnell quote suggests the potential to properly bridge Web 2 and Web 3. Millions of people potentially interacting with digital value, digital ownership, without needing to consciously think, I'm using the blockchain now.
Okay, so here's a final thought then, something for you listening to chew on based on everything we've pulled from this source. What does it actually mean for digital ownership, for game economies, maybe even for what we consider gaming, if the tech powering it becomes so seamless, so transparent, that picking up a blockchain-enabled game feels exactly the same as grabbing any other game from, say, the Epic Games store? What happens then?